You don't think the Israeli Air Force bombing apartment buildings, refugee camps, mosques, cemeteries, hospitals, schools, universities, libraries?
Firstly, it hasn't bombed, as far as I know, hospitals. They have a...
Did the audience just laugh?
Literally no.
What?
I happen to think it's a genocide, but you have called that accusation absurd. Why?
Well, I once investigated a real genocide by Muslim Turks against the Christian communities of Turkey around the year 1900.
I investigated a real genocide because, yeah, it's not a real genocide because the only people that are capable of doing a genocide are Muslims.
Some 2 million Christians were killed at the time by Muslim Turks. And that's what a genocide actually looked like. What's happening in Gaza is a war. It's a war in which there are a lot of collateral death among...
Lots of collateral deaths, almost exclusively what you characterize as collateral deaths.
Gazans, the war started...
Yes, it's a war. Yeah, sure, it's a war. It's a war against children.
Of course, by the Hamas from Gaza in a giant massacre on October 7th.
Of course, more October 7th lore. Gotta invoke October. Never forget October 7th. It all began on October 7th.
And the only way to respond to that, and any country would have responded to that.
Yes, any country. I mean, come on. Like, you're saying this as if you don't already know that the international community has already condemned your illegal occupation of the Gaza Strip, and you act as if international law has not already sanctioned the liberatory violence of an oppressed, occupied people as a protected human right.
More or less in the same fashion, I think, was to try and go after the Hamas.
The Ha in Hamas. We put the Ha in Hamas. Ha.
The Hamas was embedded in the population, as you know.
Well, that's what Israelis are doing right now. They're embedding themselves in the population. Okay, the IDF is embedding itself in the Israeli population. They have military bases in Tel Aviv. They have safe rooms. They're putting tunnels underneath hospitals in Tel Aviv. Okay, they're trying to conduct their operations. They're going underground. Isn't it so hilarious that Israel is going underground? So Israel is embedding itself as well. They love the word embed. It seems to be their favorite word. Oh, well, they embed. Okay, I guess that means everything's okay then.
Use the schools, the UNRWA schools, the hospitals as bases, as places where they stocked their ammunition, their guns themselves, hid in tunnels underneath these schools.
Yeah, why would they be reduced to hiding in tunnels? Could it be that the IDF bombs so savagely their entire cities periodically, every so often, when what they call mowing the lawn? And also there's no evidence that Hamas uses schools and mosques and hospitals as command centers. And thirdly, even if they did, it still doesn't mean you get to murder with disproportionate violence. Remember, there's the principle of disproportionality that every army, every military must abide by. You can't bomb a hospital and kill scores of people just because you say that there's a Hamas command center. It's always the same talking points. They need to get some new talking points. Throw these ones away, Benny Morris. Throw these talking points away because they're not working. Everyone sees through your bullshit. Just as Norman Finkelstein said, there's no safe place in Gaza. And also, do you think that a people of a sovereign country want to have their military operations be underground? Or do you think that they want peaceful, secure borders, which they are entitled to as a human right for a people that have been recognized as sovereign by the international community, and because they are sovereign people, they have their right to self-determine, which is being denied to them. How is it being denied? Well, in one facet, they're being denied the ability to organize their own militia. They're being denied their ability to have military infrastructure. Do you think that Israel would allow Hamas to construct a military base in the open? Israel has no right to be where they are. Of course, they can't allow their enemies to mobilize and have infrastructure. Remember, this goes back to the political economy of de-development, as elucidated by Sarah Roy in her book, Gaza Strip, The Political Economy of De-Development. You have to de-institutionalize as part of the de-development process. You have to rob people of the ability to organize. That's why they bomb schools. That's why they bomb cities. That's why they indiscriminately bomb all the civilian infrastructure. If they can't organize, they can't resist. Exactly. The only reason you get to have a society is that people are organized. People organize themselves. Groups of people organizing themselves. In order to organize, you need buildings, resources. You need infrastructure. It's all couched in this racist narrative that Palestinians, they're just backwards people, like we say all the time. It's just they're bloodthirsty, prone to violence. It's in their DNA to be bloodthirsty, violent, psychopathic murderers. When that is big if true. But we know better, and we know that when people are deprived of their human rights, people turn violent, okay, necessarily so. Commonly understood, it's a most basic logic you can completely understand. Anyone, a 5-year-old can understand this. He's just telling on himself. They're constructing tunnels. Wait, why are they constructing tunnels? Hold up, wait, they're smuggling in weapons? Why do they need to smuggle in weapons? Why does a country need to smuggle weapons through tunnels? Why are they being treated like a third world armed guerrilla group? Okay, and the answer is because Israel is a savage murderer and has completely deinstitutionalized the Gaza Strip.
Damage, which of course the Hamas knew it was going to ignite.
They knew. Look how insidious this, I want to punch them right in the face. Yeah, Hamas puts themselves in hospitals knowing full well that they're going to get blown up and die. This is the thinking of an Israeli, because then Hamas gets to use that as political leverage to implore the international community. Say, look, they've bombed another hospital. They've killed all of our civilians. It's like how Golda Meir said, we will never forgive them for making us murder their children. They did this. It's like the meme where the guy shoots the dude and he's like, who did this? It's the same thing. It's like, but you see, Hamas knew that Israel was going to bomb the hospital. And that's another silly thing. This is why I don't buy all this. It's like, why would Hamas put military bases or command centers in hospitals when that is historically been the #1 target for Israel? Israel, going back to the 40s, has been bombing hospitals and mosques and schools. What makes you think that Hamas thinks it's a good idea to house their military and conduct operations from a hospital?
I myself have problems with the war as it's being waged, but
you see, this is the most liberal dove in the Israeli body politique, the most liberal dove of Israeli intellectuals, and this is exactly the same liberal apologia you get from the doves in the United States, like during the Vietnam War, which Noam Chomsky talks about. The fact that we don't view Vietnam as an incredible war crime, it's appalling. What we say is, well, we started the war for good reasons, but we made some blunders. And that's the sharpest critique of the US government made by the so-called obstinate press that's supposed to be antagonistic and objective and vying for the truth. And here we have the same from the Israeli press and the likes of Benny Morris saying, well, I don't agree entirely with how the war, I agree with the war, but we've made some strategic blunders along the way. But for the most part, I think we're trying to do good. Yeah, and that's another lie that Benny Morris is saying right here. It's actually the majority of the 1,200 Israelis killed on October 7th was by the smelly diaper farts in attack gunship helicopters mowing down their own people, especially at that music music concert. Just look, guys, the next time you decide to have a music festival, okay, I just want you to do one thing. Don't place the music festival that you want to have next to a concentration camp. In fact, don't put your settler colony next to a concentration camp. I just think it's bad news, all right? So the next time you find yourself commandeering an apartheid ethno-state, just heed these words of advice, please. This foam rave at Auschwitz was not a good idea in the 40s. Yeah, that's the greatest allegory here. You want people to see the truth? Let's just redress the language from Zionists. It'd be like you saying this in the 40s about the Nazis, okay? So in the 40s, you would have been this guy saying, yeah, the Nazis, obviously made some strategic blunders, but overall, the war was good and was being fought for noble causes. I'm Yisrael Chai.
Genocide it definitely isn't. The aim here is not to kill as many Palestinians.
That's not the definition of genocide.
It's one of
Ooh, finally we have a Mehdi Hasan striking back.
You wrote a book on genocide. That's not the definition of genocide.
It's one of the definitions.
It's not.
Try and kill.
It's not based on numbers, the definition.
It's also based on intent and on numbers.
It's based on the intent.
Yes. There's
to
no
destroy, to kill, in whole or in
In part, yes, right. I was hoping Mehdi would say that.
There's no intent here.
That's his book. We'll come to intent.
I'm not.
I just want to
He's like, there's no. As far as I can tell, he's like, there's no intent. Wait, hang on. But hang on, though.
I'm not a government spokesman. You seem to be presenting me as a government spokesman.
How did I present you in a government spokesman? I asked you for your view on the war. I didn't say anything. We'll come to the government. I'm just asking about your view right now. The definition of genocide, you wrote a book on it, is nothing to do with how many people you kill. So it's not a numbers game.
It's also a numbers game.
The ICC chief prosecutor has asked for arrest warrants, not just for Hamas leaders, but for the Israeli prime minister and the defense minister for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And he says he has mountains of evidence. We've all seen with our own eyes the Israelis in Gaza commit war crimes on camera, kill unarmed people who are carrying white flags, blow up apartment buildings, drop 2,000-pound bombs on crowded refugee camps. Can we at least agree, Benny, even if we're going to disagree on genocide, that Israel has committed...
He's like, yeah, I'm going to defend this. No problem.
Did numerous war crimes since the Hamas war crimes on October the 7th.
I'm fairly sure there have been war crimes, but the war itself is not a war crime, as the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October was. It was a war crime from beginning to end. The aim was to kill as many civilians as possible.
There's no evidence for that. There's no evidence that they aim to kill as many civilians as possible. By all accounts, it was a military-style raid against, once again, an illegal occupation. I don't know why we have to keep... Which is why they took hostages? Yeah, exactly. There's literally no evidence for what he's saying, that the aim was to kill... I mean, it's just source, trust me, bro. He says it's a war crime. Again, if this were to ever be litigated, I would contend that under international law, the military raid of October 7th was not a war crime. It actually had military objectives. Zionists love to deflect, but again, this all stems from an illegal occupation, and reprisals born against illegal occupiers is a protected human right. And once more, going back to the Geneva Conventions and the Nuremberg trials itself, which prosecuted the Holocaust, by the way, prosecuted the Jewish Holocaust, did indeed outline the supreme international crime of aggression, which carries with it the accumulated evil of the whole. So the crime of aggression is the illegal occupation of the Gaza Strip, and the accumulated evil would be the October 7th. In this case, of course, there's so much accumulated evil. It would take me hours to go through the historical record to recount in vivid detail all of the war crimes that Israel has committed since the 40s, since its inception. But let's just take this in specific context of October 7th, which they love to pearl clutch about. They love to pearl clutch about October 7th. Well, the accumulated evil of the whole, October 7th, is part of that accumulated evil, and under international law, which prosecuted the Jewish Holocaust, that would be the fault of Israel. So Israel is to blame for October 7th. The violence committed by an oppressed people who are being occupied and ethnically cleansed is qualitatively different than the violence done or committed by the oppressive, by the oppressors. They are done for completely different reasons. They are done with completely different motivations. They are done with completely different morals, different goals, all of that. Like I say all the time, there are two social groups in this geopolitical event. Let's look at it objectively, okay? All you need to understand about this geopolitical event, which is not complex, it's actually very simple, is that one social group has no human rights and is fighting against their own systematic annihilation while the international community watches and holds its nose. So nobody's going to do anything. Okay, so the other side, the other social group, has human rights and is depriving the other group of their human rights. And that's all you need to know. It begins and it ends right there.
Charter, which is to kill basically every Jew you can get hold of in Palestine.
Now he's invoking Hamas Charter, but Hamas Charter. World's smartest Zionists, try not to go and pearl clutch at words while you are committing some of the worst actions, the most depraved, savage actions in all of human history against another people. Yeah, let's pearl clutch at words written in 1988 for a charter that is no longer, it's completely void, it's completely, invalidated. It'd be like saying, like I said, let's go back to the original U.S. Constitution, which legalized slavery, okay? So we're not gonna worry about any of the amendments the United States instituted after the original Constitution. We're just going to go back to the original Constitution and take it at face value. But what about the Bible? But like the miracle book said that Sky Daddy said so. So yeah, awkward. Let me come through. Thank you.
But I didn't ask about the aim. I asked about the acts that are being committed.
As I said, probably there have been, as in all wars.
He's like, oh yeah, let's normalize. As I said, look, probably there have been war crimes. Look, I'm not saying that Israel is an angel in this, but all wars have war crimes. Let's just do a little more war crimes. Yeah, maybe. But can we move on and talk about Hamas, please? You're making me uncomfortable. Let's talk about the Hamas charter.
War crime.
You accept there have been war crimes?
Yes.
So you would support an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu?
I didn't say that.
Why?
No, that's a bridge too far.
There hasn't been an arrest warrant.
I know, there's been a request from the ICC chief prosecutor.
So far they haven't
That's
issued.
why he said request, motherfucker.
I don't know if you can hold a prime minister responsible if a sergeant kills several unarmed people in...
You don't know if you can hold the prime minister responsible if a sergeant commits a war crime. And it's also like, that would be all well and good, but we actually have on record your president, your defense minister, and Netanyahu all openly making genocidal statements, which we've covered on this channel and on my TikTok page, and others have as well. Yeah, Israel will give that sergeant a week vacation. You know, it's the same thing. Some human rights organizations were incriminating the IDF, and the IDF says, no, it's just the Netzai Yehuda.
It wasn't us, it was the Netzai Yehuda!
It's like this small faction. He's doing the same sort of running D for the war cabinet of Satan. He's saying, well, it might have been a sergeant, that went rogue. They all go rogue, don't they? That's so weird. As if Netanyahu's not minutely involved in the planning of this genocide, as he orders all of these bombings. I mean, is this guy really trying to defend Hitler? I mean, that's what I just don't understand. I'm appalled by how idiotic this is. It's abysmal. The occupation itself is a war crime. Benjamin Netanyahu was committing war crimes decades ago against the Palestinians, which he's never answered for. Operation Cast Lead, Operation Protective Edge, Operation Pillar of Defense. There's been so many operations, I forget them all. But even in this genocide, I mean, obviously, this has been all done in Benjamin Netanyahu's name.
You don't think the Israeli Air Force bombing apartment buildings, refugee camps, mosques, cemeteries, hospitals, schools, universities, libraries?
Firstly, it hasn't bombed, as far as I know, hospitals. They have a...
The audience just laughed? Dude, you just got schooled by the entire building. The entire building is laughing at you because you said, I don't think that Israel has bombed hospitals. What? This guy is a joke. How do you take this person seriously?
Nixon ordered Cambodian genocide. Clinton sent cruise missiles to Sudan, people died. Obama gave the orders to do drone strikes.